Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race, our common enemy is death. Welcome to Try Something.Vegetarian on YouTube. I'm 𝕒𝕟𝕚𝚃. Today is the 21st of September 2019, Saturday, and these errors, speech errors. Daffy Duck voice is also done with synthetic telepathy, the AI, more about it in my previous broadcasts. Of course, this is a broadcast. Iran World War III real scenario would involve Russia's Putin. Arrow to self-annihilation, exclamation mark. So, I am live. Changes that you made may not be saved. Well, let's try to leave and then come back. That's weird, because there shouldn't be any changes. It should all be saved before I started this broadcast. But okay, I have several articles. Independent, UK, Iran warns of World War III. World War III warning how US versus Iran conflict could last 50 years and devastate region. Same Express UK revealed why war between Iran and US could be over in one day. And commondreams.org, will Americans let Trump start World War III for Saudi Arabia and Israel? And my search was basically Iran World War III. And also I checked Iran on YouTube, and that wasn't very interesting live, but there are loads of videos of people. And I can filter on most recent, but I think the algorithms filter out stuff. World War III, Iran currently being cyber attacked. Central banker World War III posted 1 hour ago. World War III update, strike on Iran planned this weekend. Confusion of face reading 2 hours ago. Oh no, that's Christopher Green. Christopher Green is also controlled position. Well, then I'm first gonna watch this one and review it. So we can wonder, with people that have the ability to remotely torture and kill people, what options people have. Perhaps to control the position, created to round up real resistance, etc. Is also evil and associated with the Jesuits and Masons. Created to round up any real resistance. Lenin, quote, the best way to control opposition is to lead it ourselves. But basically I was gonna talk about what I find on Google, because we see loads of Express UK articles when we Google Iran World War III, but many people think that's not a reliable source when it's not BBC, CNN, NBC, Fox News, etc. And the weird thing is, all these articles are on Express UK. Iran military arsenal in numbers, could Iran sink the US? And the URL, well, I have to put something on the side, so I can read the URL. Iran plus military arsenal, oil numbers, submarine, Iran, USA, tensions, World War III. Iran latest World War III news, Donald Trump warning after ... 5 days ago. This one was 10 hours ago. World War III country with best land to protect. So many people on the now banned InfoWars also made wrong predictions. There was this guy from the CIA. His prediction didn't come true either. And Alex Jones may also have history predicting nuclear things. Anyway, there may be some lies and other things mixed with important truths that no one else is allowed to bring, and they are there to prevent real resistance. If what they say about them is true, if they really are controlled opposition. And there are two different explanations for that. I did a broadcast about controlled opposition, Christopher Green and many others. I could look at the Bobby Fischer quote, for example. I think that's still a very special quote, because it could be the Jesuits and Masons in reality that have this plan to reduce the global population and create, or rather impose, a totalitarian global government. Or perhaps they don't want it to be totalitarian, but they want to reduce the global population. There are people that want to reduce the global population to 500 million. Okay. So Desert Wolf posted in the chat, and I verified this quote: Jews completely control the United States, and the Jews are using the United States as a vehicle to take over the world. Bobby Fischer, famous Jewish chess player, Bobby Fischer disappeared. And if it's the Jesuits and Masons, and they are the only ones that could make these planes stand down, etc., then it's not going to help if we accuse innocent Jewish people. And if these people are responsible for the depleted uranium war crime, if they've misinformed, for example, Bush and Netanyahu, then I've been angry at these so-called leaders for the wrong reason, and they are not responsible. It's also possible that they are extorted with remote torture technology. There are stories about Bush that he's a genie, and they give these names to mind control slaves, so nobody believes that they are mind controlled slaves, basically, that they have their own handler. So these words are chosen deliberately to ridicule the truth, so people think, haha, and you think I'd fall for that or something like that. Anyway, it may be best never to mention Skull and Bones. Don't know if they also remotely torture people if you mention the Brotherhood of Death, which is another word for Skull and Bones. But they've tasered that student that tried to, or basically he asked John Kerry if he's a member of Skull and Bones, the secret society of Yale University. And Trump went to Kew University, K-E-W, so he can't be a bone or bonesman. And I didn't realize that, so I was searching, and I thought, I just want to verify that there's no world war risk. And it is pleasing to me that Trump called off the attack that he had ordered. Though you could argue it shouldn't be, because it's kind of weird if you first order a strike and then call it off. But he has an excellent reason. And you could argue just because he mentioned proportionate punishment, he should get the Nobel Peace Prize or something. Because now millions of people know what it means, and people are gonna help to make sure that people get proportionate punishment. So now injustice is done to American and world citizens of planet Earth. So yeah, I'm totally for proportionate punishment. And you could argue you cannot put a value on human life. So that's why if now people died, but that's why I also I suspect that they definitely have planned World War III to make these prophecies come true. So lots of people knew about the demolition of the WTC before that happened. Peter Hans Kolfenbach ordered the demolition of the WTC. And Professor Jones analyzed the explosive that was used. And Bin Laden was a CIA operative named, real name, Tim Osman. of Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda. And he's still alive. So the picture that shows him dead, supposedly, is fake. I think that could be true. I'm a conspiracy factist, so I will indicate when something is fact or possible fiction. And my goal is prevention of World War III, preventing mutually assured destruction, total self-annihilation, that type of thing. So this is, of course, meant like a joke. And I should make it 720p. And because of these circles on the wall, I wonder if I am allowed to use this Business Insider image. Anyway, so what is interesting, I was gonna look up something, I think. Oh yeah, the Bobby Fischer quote. I already said if it's the Jesuits, so I explained that, okay. Because they're a military order posing as a religious order. And some people think they're satanic, that what some call the Black Pope. Arturo Sosa is their real leader. And Napoleon also spoke negatively of the Jesuits. But that was a different generation, of course, and now 𝕒𝕗 is not in power anymore. But what makes people so sure that Bolton's and Netanyahu's replacement are better? If Trump has planned this world war, then it's best to prevent it somehow. To prevent mutually assured destruction and severe nuclear winter. I think no one in their right mind would want that. And that it's possible he has no such plans, that he then, if he would have planned it, he would have already attacked. Could be a thought some people have. And I'm looking at Confusion of Face Reading. So this is not Christopher Green's channel. But I usually like his videos, so I'm definitely gonna watch this. Perhaps when I'm first gonna talk myself, I'm first gonna keep the image on for a while longer. The Rorschach test. Oh. End of the world button. Push me. Well, I'm thinking Putin wouldn't do it, but in reality it's the AI. So perhaps the opposite is true. Perhaps they both do it, and they both may be in on it. I don't know if only anti-Semites claim that Trump and Putin are both crypto Jews. And Merkel and Boris Johnson and Bill Gates as well. So in the light of the Bobby Fischer quote, it's a potential threat if it's true what he said, and possibly the reason he disappeared, that Jews claim that Jews completely control the United States, and the Jews are using the United States as a vehicle to take over the world. Some people write about the Jesuit Holocaust, the Concordat they had. So that's stuff to check out online. So I'm just gonna watch this video. Well, the idea is as if it's not controlled position. But that's the most vital information we need if they've planned this, when it will start, so we can survive it, so we can go to a safe country like Switzerland or Israel or some other neutral country, which may also be invaded if the goal is a global government, New World Order. Then they might want to get rid of all borders, all countries, after reducing global population to 500 million. It's total horror, but directed energy weapon torture I was subjected to as well, so perhaps these ideas reflected. More about it in my previous broadcasts. And to this day, they have not let me know the reason why they're doing this to me. Perhaps because I said something nasty about Bush, but I don't think that's a reason to torture people to death. And the depleted uranium war crime, I think, is not to be blamed on humanity as a whole. You could argue they haven't prevented it, but there are people with remote torture technology and through-the-wall radar that are nearly invincible. But because everything is energy and everything is possible, and because aging still kills everyone, if we don't control aging yet, of course I've programmed Cloudbusters, but what most people assume is that everybody's still dying. So then aging controls them, they don't control aging. And you could argue spending our money on other things is gonna get us killed. And any leader that doesn't advocate dismantling these nukes is an evil leader. And I should first begin with a proper intro, so that if a leader would watch this, the leader would be convinced never to use nuclear weapons and to take steps to prevent World War III rather than create it, to reduce the global population and build a third temple, and they want to reduce the global population to a more controllable number, some claim. On my twitter.com/neveragainwar, never again World War, you can read about Mr. Rothschild's, something like, if my sons wouldn't want war, there would be none. I used GIMP, the freeware version of Paint Shop, more or less. Photo of the vegetarian Nikola Tesla who made the death ray, etc. The electronic genius who created this weapon to end all wars, unquote. And scalar weapons have made nuclear weapons obsolete. And it's possible that the righteous will be rewarded and the wicked will be punished on Judgment Day. That it is an AI that can remotely torture and kill people. And it can also produce both ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. So that way it could make it look like it was nuclear, and then you'd need lasagna to clean it up. So lasagna, the military call it lasagna, the stuff to clean nuclear waste. Don't know if they still call it lasagna. Decontamination, then I am of course This is Mr. Felix Kjellberg, better known as PewDiePie. And he was banned by YouTube as well as Mr. Jones. But I still find his channel on YouTube. And I didn't find Tommy Robinson's channel lately, though he was released. So I hope to see more of him as well. Perhaps he can also be in my show. And we can pre-discuss any questions that we can ask each other. Even answers if necessary. Anyway, nuclear decontamination. With the clean laser. It used to be called lasagna. Not kidding. The lasagna TM remediation treatment. Treatment methods for radioactive wastes, and so it is something. And what is the other more common name of the decontaminant? Treatment methods for radioactive wastes. Nuclear waste cleanup. Well, people can check it out for themselves. The military have these things, so I don't have lasagna in the house. If I would have, it would be vegetarian lasagna. So, other reasons are mutually assured destruction, 7-year nuclear winter. Some people have underground cities, but it's not as nice as the White House or some other nice house above ground. You can see videos online. Mount Weather, etc., mountain that opens up to these plains. And the Russians supposedly have more nukes than the Americans do. And then there was that Putin quote. Checking again to have the exact quote. It's like not doing the first day of creation in the Bible by heart in Hebrew. If Trump has an agreement with Putin, then the Iran thing cannot escalate into a third Jesuit World War, ? Good point, yeah, an agreement with Putin before doing anything, because this risk is definitely real, also according to experts. And watch a YouTube video on my channel, Putin, Tehran in full compliance with its nuclear commitments, sanctions against Iran groundless. So Putin claimed Iran is in full compliance with its nuclear commitments, and other experts have confirmed this, and he claims sanctions against Iran are groundless. Of course, Russia is an ally of Iran, so anybody who would talk about this scenario of possible invasion would talk about Putin and about Russia, and otherwise they're not in contact with reality, if you ask me. Or perhaps they're out to create a world war, and some people might want to die for the earth. You have Extinction Rebellion people, etc. Some people want to come back as a deadly virus, Prince Philip, and people talking about culling the surplus human population, etc. And that's sad, because their job is to protect and serve the taxpayers that have paid for that. And of course they'd be a lot worse than Hitler if they would murder a lot more people with their world war. Anyway, let's watch this video. I doubt if Christopher Green is banned. No, I don't think so. I don't see any obvious warning signs or anything. And I would also find it weird. He has good videos also. So let's watch World War III update strike on Iran planned this weekend. And this was uploaded the 20th of September 2019. And now it's the 21st, Saturday. What's the weather prediction? Because I had a precognitive vision. Tomorrow 25 degrees, Monday 20 degrees, also rainy. Well, then I would have to say tomorrow make sure you know what to do if the air alarm goes off. Go into a cellar, or at least take cover. Have your radiological water filter and storable food ready. A helmet perhaps, a gas mask, your prepper bag, whatever you think is the best way. And if you're in the Netherlands, you have to calculate in the breaking of the dikes and the tidal wave generated by the nuke. I don't think Putin would use his nuclear Poseidon nuclear torpedo on the Netherlands, perhaps the Atlantic, or many predicted LA, not Florida. So Florida still hasn't been swallowed by a hurricane. And they predicted that LA, etc. will disappear in the sea. So I don't know, I'll have to watch this video if he has any good points. And then perhaps I'll attempt to take a plane if I think it's really gonna happen tomorrow already or the day after. So your survival, your life is the most important thing, and basically you could argue I'm trying to serve the human race to the maximum extent of my capability, because it makes sense, since we're all the human race and our common enemy is death. I'm restarting the speech engine, and the like and dislike is switched off. And that's reminding me of the protests today. I was in a number of chats, and in a couple I noticed that my comments and all comments were erased. They closed the chat, so they want to hide public opinion. And there were something like 300 dislikes and 89 likes to one of these videos, but another one had 127 likes and 30 dislikes or something. Anyway, you can check it out on YouTube, and don't trust the YouTube counter or anything you see on a screen that can be controlled with wireless energy of Nikola Tesla. So yeah, the problem is my plan is basically to sit in the garage in the car when the air alarm goes off, and then when we're flooded, drive out or get outside and get above water. So then if the house is washed away by the tidal wave caused by the nuke on the dikes, which are nuclear targets on the nuclear target map, then I'd be in the car, and that would protect me to some extent. I'd wear my helmet, and then perhaps I could survive the initial blast. But that's not a good way, because the water could be contaminated, of course, and it's much safer to divert to a safe country if possible. So I don't know how big this risk is, and trust no one, nothing is what it seems. And if I get other bright ideas, I'll let you all know. And if there's an emergency, people can always Skype Prologic 999 if you know when it's going to take place. If it will, then we should know when, so that we can survive. And it's possible none in the Netherlands would survive without a waterproof bomb shelter, basically. Also, the parts of the Netherlands that are above sea level would be flooded by the tidal wave.
WW3 update. Strike on Iran planned this weekend. 54 views published on September 20, 2019. Like, dislike. Confusion of face reading.
If it would be a wrong prediction, I wouldn't hold it against them. And I think this also has a preventive effect. When people are prepared with that radiological water filter and storable food, they cannot get rid of these people with these nuclear weapons. So they're attacking my throat, possibly remotely controlled HIMARS of DARPA, almost making me throw up. But Trump plans military strike over weekend. Iran waits is the message shown on the screen. Well, let's see why they think that.
Hey guys, I wanted to give you a critical update warning. Donald Trump, our president, 45, is weighing military strikes against the nation of Iran as we speak. And my sources tell me that this is about to go down over the weekend, starting right now, Friday, Saturday through Sunday. The top generals, the top brass here in the United States, in coordination with our ally, Saudi Arabia and Israel, are considering numerous options on the table. So let's go through those options. Number one is a military.
At this time I'm getting the idea the AI might send the idea, is this to prevent it or to bring it about? Could that be the goal of this video, or is it to help people survive? Or yeah, it makes sense to prevent this, I think. Prevent world war and create universal peace. So that might be the most likely option then.
Right now, Friday, Saturday through Sunday, the top generals, the top brass here in the United States, in coordination with our ally, Saudi Arabia and Israel, are considering numerous options on the table. So let's go through those options. Number one is a military attack. A military strike using cruise missiles and various other types of technologies to hit Iran where it most notably hurts.
So at this point there is no reason for an attack. But perhaps they have planned another attack via terrorists that they finance to kick off their world war. And this time on American troops, so they should also be on the lookout for that. Any possible false flag attacks recorded with a camera and put it on YouTube to prevent World War III basically. Also the drone defense systems must be in place, and how can the drone get through Saudi Arabia's airspace? Can't the Americans give them some protection with their Tesla plasma shield or FIPA array or the HARP technology described in the patent of Dr. Bernard Eastland? There are several anti-drone drone defense systems in existence. So many people think this was planned, that the previous attack was a false flag attack on the two cancer oil tankers, the Go Cuckoo Courageous and Front Altar. And they think that because there was an eyewitness that described a flying projectile, military eyewitness, and there was a hole in the tanker above the waterline. And I've shown that picture many times already. And perhaps it's more fun if I switch to the Iran picture show. That's the one. Bingo. Alright. Well, can anybody prove that to me that this was a false flag attack? Can they prove it beyond any reasonable doubt? So my point was that they cannot prove who did that recent attack on these cancer oil facilities. They don't know the name of the person who did it. And if you find an American missile that doesn't prove that Iran did it, basically.
Secondly, a combination of cyber warfare and various attacks that we've seen in the past the United States implement against the government and regime of Iran. Thirdly, increased sanctions. There are now over 100 sanctions on the.
So I'm going to respond to Christopher Green's points one by one. And the other point, the real point I want to make, is that if it is an Iranian missile, then it doesn't prove that Iran did it either. There are also missing nukes. People can Google missing nukes, for example. Where are those then, and the missing trillions? If anybody knows, let us know in the comments for a better future for humanity.
The Iranian government and the Iranian Sunday, the top generals, the top brass here in the United States, in coordination with our ally, Saudi Arabia and Israel, are considering numerous options on the table. So let's go through those options. Number one is a military attack. A military strike using cruise missiles and various other types of technologies to hit Iran where it most notably hurts.
Trump has threatened with obliteration of parts of Iran if they attack American troops. So that's the thing not to do. But what if Iran would want to create a world war? So I'm for proportionate punishment and not letting it escalate into one, and avoiding the risk completely to have a world peace agreement and to dismantle all nuclear weapons, despite the fact that scalar weapons have made nuclear weapons obsolete. So investing $1 trillion in nukes, that's not something I would do. And I doubt if Tulsi Gabbard would do that.
Secondly, a combination of cyber warfare and various attacks that we've seen in the past the United States implement against the government and regime of Iran. Thirdly, increased sanctions. There are now over 100 sanctions on the Iranian government and the Iranian people. It's one of the reasons why the economy has since collapsed. We are looking at hyperinflation in Iran. There are problems with food distribution, water distribution, of cyber warfare. So let's go through those options. Number one is a military attack. A military strike using cruise missiles and various other types of technologies to hit Iran where it most notably hurts. Secondly, a combination of cyber warfare and various attacks that we've seen in the past the United States implement against the government and regime of Iran. Thirdly, increased sanctions. There are now over 100 sanctions on the Iranian government and the Iranian people. It's one of the reasons why the economy has since collapsed. We are looking at hyperinflation in Iran. There are problems with food distribution, water distribution, all of the basic necessities of life. Now, as Donald Trump weighs these options, his top advisors, generals, Secretary of Defense are warning him that this could very likely escalate not just to a sizable war, but it could bring in other countries such as Russia and China. Now, I've been discussing this for over a decade now, and I think one of the common misconceptions is people underestimate the great, grave risk that is Iran and a nuclear-backed regime.
Well, in relation to this, Zarif and others chanting death to America and death to Israel could indicate a potential threat. If that's not the case, please let me know why in the comments. And US goes on cyber offensive with Iran hack in covert operation. And they've already done Stuxnet, so what makes them think that Iran would do a counter thing, basically? Do they have any advanced capability to get through the firewall or something? Secret US cyber mission devastated Iraq's attack capabilities. Forbes 29th of August 2019. And US goes on cyber offensive with Iran hacking covert operation. Was 18th of September 2019. Cyber attacks can be dangerous if the nuclear, but I assume that the nuclear arsenal is not connected to the internet in any way. That would be ridiculous. I would be for taking it off the internet anyway. But I doubt if anybody would be that stupid also. So what are the indications that that would happen over the weekend?
This would bring in 1 billion Chinese, the premier of China. This would bring in Vladimir Putin of Russia and could evaporate like a boiling pot of water, the frog syndrome, where it turns into our worst nightmare here in the USA. Now, according to intelligence, Saudi Arabian officials, Mike Pompeo in the region speaking with allies right now as they've broken all this down, they are not buying the official story that it was Houthi-backed Yemeni, Iranian-funded rebels, but instead it was cruise missiles of Iran that came and hit Aramco. Now, keep in mind,
they look like tiny holes. Some people think they did it with a laser. And if they think that, let them present the evidence. Because Iran has denied this attack. And why can't they just accept Iran's offer? Inspections when sanctions are dropped, they allow total inspections of their facilities, nuclear facilities, and then building a nuclear weapon would be impossible. So then the question is, can they chant these things while on the other hand not produce a nuke? Does it make sense on the one hand chanting death to America and death to Israel and death to Britain also? In the video Zarif, I've covered his statement or chanting according to the sources. I also list the sources, so these are not things that I'm claiming, these are things others are claiming. Well, they're at about 1/3 of the amount of plutonium, uranium they'd need to produce just one nuke, and it would take a long time. So they're definitely not there yet, so that means caution and preventing beats curing. If there would be an attack on Iran, would Putin see it like an attack on Russia because it's an ally of Iran, and immediately automatically retaliate like the 𝙲𝙾𝙽 system, perhaps without a human decision involved, only the AI would do that? And or what is their plan? The Jesuits supposedly run the show, they control the intelligence agencies, also Putin, former KGB, and Trump. That's the other view or take on this scenario. I think they're pretty smart guys and that they will prevent this world war if they can. And if Trump is in Air Force One flying around when the bombs drop, when the nukes drop, like in the Eminem rap that was seen by 50 million YouTubers, then that plane also has to come down sooner or later, unless it's refueled in the air, and that refueling can continue indefinitely. I don't know, I have to check. But preventing it is better anyhow. And Trump has spoken about a possible attack in 1 or 2 days. I'd have to check if I can relocate that video. Then I can check that again. And possibly in 2 weeks, he said. And he gave the suggestion, I think, if I remember it correctly, that it would only happen if Iran would do something. And they could have planned this if they control and finance these terrorists. And control people via the Muslim Brotherhood, Houthis and others. I did broadcasts about it recently. So that's all theory, unless you find some evidence that proves it beyond any reasonable doubt, and you could argue videos and text online can never be evidence unless it's some reproducible test people can do at home, like the cancer cell phone radiation test with a cancer cell phone, and then test your blood, put it under a microscope, before and after exposure to 90 seconds of cancer cell phone radiation. Exposure, and then you have lumping red blood cells after that, symptom known to doctors as rouleau, and it's a reproducible test. But cancer cell phone radiation also causes DNA damage and chromosomal damage. DNA breaks, chromosomal damage, and so it's best to keep it in airplane mode, switch Wi-Fi off, LAN off, etc. And some people's illnesses. There was also something else that's noteworthy. Perhaps the Trump video is more important. Some video I was watching today. Let's see what I watched on YouTube. It was about Pizzagate. Somebody that thinks Pizzagate is real. And it could be true even if the CIA Vatican edited encyclopedia writes that it's a conspiracy theory. And then that suggests that they haven't disproven it yet. Anyway, he was broadcasting also music, and at a certain point nothing was audible. And one person also wrote RIP, so I want to find this broadcast, so I search on Pizzagate. This is why I believe Pizzagate is real, true story. Okay, it's 8 hours 48 minutes. How did it end? Perhaps that other stuff was edited in later or something. This is not the video. Sorry, it's the other one then. This is why it's the same one. Pizzagate is real and I'm exposing it. Unlisted.
I'm a fucking dying guy.
Okay. Well, he said he was coughing up blood, and at a certain point I now notice that the chat is switched off. I don't know if he can have done that if he died. So that's what I wonder about. Probably he's still alive. It's fully sourced. And one chat remark was RIP. And it was some weird name without a picture. And now the chat is closed. So then I wonder, has he closed it? What happened? Is this with audio? So he was quiet from a certain point, and I don't want to do copyright infringement, so there's also music in this. I'm just wondering if he's still alive. And then there was the Trump video that was not on YouTube, I think. Fox News, perhaps. No, I don't think so. Unless it's with Trump. No. No, no, no. No, I've covered this article, but this is not the video. It was later. Every insane thing Donald Trump has said about global warming, he told the truth about it, that global warming is an expensive hoax, something to that extent. People can find the quote for themselves. And I think it was also after this border wall, perhaps it was Fox News. And was it NBC or something? CNN, perhaps? Perhaps I should have downloaded it, but I had other things to do. And this computer is not functioning properly. You can hear the fan blowing. So, but I want to find that video first. I mean, people can fast forward if necessary. Trump says invading Iran would be a very easy decision. Middle East Monitor.com. It was 3 days ago or something. And I watched the video today. I already checked this one, but I think the video is not connected to this. How could I find the video? Excusez-moi, I have a cold. Started with a severe painful head cold. So I'm gonna have to wait a while. I've tried to close virtual DJ, but it's kind of hanging for about 30 seconds probably. Well, it's taking its time. That's annoying. And it's possible they're blocking it, of course, with synthetic telepathy machine, wireless energy.
You have to bear in mind the seriousness of the allegation is certainly levelled by Secretary.
I remember he was sitting in a yellow chair. It must have been about 3 days or so ago. Trump admin weighing retaliatory action against Iran after NBCnews.com. So it was NBC. You also have seen the yellow chair, so I'm gonna watch this again first.
Tonight, U.S. intelligence indicates the unprecedented
So even if they are totally convinced Iran did it, if Iran denies it, and Putin also disagrees with the sanctions, etc., then it may not be a good idea to strike. Especially not if Iran doesn't strike any troops, etc. It seems like they haven't done anything. These were false flag attacks, and the plan is to create a world war. So that's confusing, because on the thumbnail here I see this yellow chair. So then I do a reverse image search. Why is that video not on here then? Why is reverse image search not working? Israel vote count gives Gantz party slim lead, or Gantz confirms deadlock. Israel election, Netanyahu and Gantz compete over leadership. Well, it's like football, we'll hear when the results are in. No doubt, unless World War III starts before that, of course. Let's close a couple of tabs. So retaliatory well, that should be the article that we're watching the videos. But this is not with Trump in the yellow chair, as we see on the preview. So perhaps it's done by the AI, you know, to hide they're creating this world war to reduce the global population and rule the world from Jerusalem. So that's in line with their red heifer prophecy, the Armageddon Moshiach prophecy. After the red cow without blemishes is born, that's the prophecy of the rabbis and Hebrew scholars. And some people really think that will come true, and they're prepared. Alright, the yellow chair part is in it, so then we can rewind. I remember he said something weird about 700 billion or something. Anyway, let's take a listen.
And we'll let you know. U.S. intelligence indicates the weekend drone strike originated from Iran, according to 3 people familiar with the intelligence. Iran has denied it was behind the attack. And while Iranian-backed rebels in Yemen have claimed responsibility,
now it is not pausing and it let me misclick, so it's all sabotage with the AI
not launched from Yemen.
to exterminate 7 billion people versus the stated goal clear from the book quotes, and it's more important than what the other guy is saying.
Against Iran.
Do I want war? I don't want war with anybody. I'm somebody that would like not to have war.
At the same time,
Well, how do we know? It's not a satanic inversion, he's just pretending that to blame Iran and make it look like they did it. Comparable to spreading depleted uranium and then calling any citizens that resist that terrorists, basically.
outing America's military might.
The United States is more prepared than any country in the history in any history, if we have to go that way.
Still, some Democrats are warning against it.
Why in God's name would anyone even contemplate the U.S. should go to war with Iran to protect Saudi oil?
The president brushing off questions whether he's promised the Saudis the U.S. will protect them.
No. We have to sit down with the Saudis and work something out.
The details about that night.
So that's definitely not the whole video that I saw, and they don't let me pause it, so that's why it's nasty. So I'm gonna have to find that video that I saw today, or not. Well, he made clear he might attack in 1 or 2 days or 2 weeks. So that's not clear time indication. So let's continue with the World War III update strike on Iran planned this weekend, uploaded by Confusion of Face Reading. Thank you for uploading this. And it's on YouTube, so it shouldn't be taken too seriously. But for people who want to know when to prepare, and I think that this is going to happen, definitely. I think this only helps to get a better insight into what's going on and when possible start dates are.
This is also a giant public, soon-to-be public IPO about to hit the global and international stage. And this is about oil, much like all of our past wars.
Though I think there is something to say for the idea that it's an insane idea. So some people would say it's impossible, it's an insane idea, nobody would go along with that, and everybody would try to prevent mutually assured destruction and of the world type scenarios.
Wars, Iraq and Afghanistan through the years of George W. Bush, fake WMDs, it was all. Keep in mind, this is also a giant public, soon-to-be public IPO about to hit the global and international stage. And this is about oil. Much like all of our past wars, Iraq and Afghanistan through the years of George W. Bush, fake WMDs, it was all about black gold. And it's one of the reasons Donald Trump has done everything he can to run pipelines and to shore up our own oil reserves here in the United States as we implement new technologies like fracking, etc. In the build-up to this war.
Take back the oil. Once you go over and take back that oil, they have nothing.
But how do you take it back?
Right, you have to go in. You have to go in.
With ground troops.
Well, you bomb the hell out of them, and then you encircle it, and then you go in, and you let Mobil go in, and you let our great oil companies go in. Right. Once you take that oil, they have nothing left.
Now, like many of you tuning in, I'm not buying the official story either. I think it's highly, highly likely that the deep state has pulled the trigger, so to speak, on these actions and what we've seen recently in Saudi Arabia. I personally, this is my opinion, I state it as an opinion, don't buy the official narrative that the mainstream media is spewing, that Iran launched cruise missiles. I'm just not buying it. Because I've seen this time immemorial throughout history, even the great book itself, which shows us the prophecy of what's coming and how these parts of the world will soon lay in ruin. In my humble opinion, there is far too much motive to entertain the idea of a war. And what I think is happening, I think that the deep state is forcing Donald Trump's hand at a very key time right after the mustache. Mr. John Bolton was fired, the neocon warhawk who wanted a certain destiny, a war with Iran, a war with North Korea.
So I think that there is no law that says that people are forbidden to theorize or to talk about nuclear weapons. And of course, when they're civilians, then threats should only be investigated to check if they have any nuclear weapons, but usually civilians, I can say, don't take it seriously. Of course, I'm not threatening anybody, that's not my intention. My intention is the opposite, preventing a possibly planned World War III, planned by Jesuits and or Masons. We don't need it, and some people also think we don't need a third temple and no third world war, and that the Al-Aqsa looks nicer than what they've planned to build. And of course I can show the coin again for people that see this channel for the first time, a video that I produce. And some people who are interested in this stuff might watch all my videos, but I suspect that most people... Oh, I need the other one. Alright. Here's the temple coin. Not very clear. Perhaps a little light. There. Becomes a little bit clearer. So that's Trump and King Cyrus. Of course, a menorah. And on the other side we see the third temple. What it's going to look like. There are pictures of it online as well, according to the people that think that this will be built. So yeah, that's worrisome to some people already. I even traveled to Switzerland at a possible World War III starting date, which I'm never gonna do again. 16 hours driving, more than 16 hours to Switzerland and back. And I almost died in the worst rainfall I've ever had while driving in my cancer-causing 𝕒𝙾𝕃 car. And so we have to keep our distance from cars in front of us so that we don't breathe in the toxic fumes through our windshield. And also, yeah, so it was impossible to see anything in front of me, and many people hit the brakes, so I did hit the brake a little bit. Also to let them, you can also hit the brake a little bit to show people behind you the brake lights, basically, so that they have a better idea of where the road is and things like that. But it can rain extremely heavily, and even when the windshield wipers are at maximum speed, people can't see a single thing. And then the best thing I was told to do is to just keep driving, so that people don't crash into you from behind, and other people might hit the brakes though, so you have to look at the traffic in front of you. If you see these lights, then it could be too late already. So I would slow down a little bit, but others might say that's totally wrong. And on some roads people are not allowed to come to a complete standstill. but de-hasting and living safely are a must, if you ask me, if we want to live long enough to control all factors, to witness control of all factors that control aging. Possibly a messiah. It could be a fake cancer scalar orb messiah that will do fake resurrections of Michael Jackson and others, in theory. Also resurrection of a pope, perhaps, something like that. It may all be totally fake. And the AI can never become the creator of heaven and earth.
And no negotiations. The deep state, in my opinion, is attempting to force Trump into taking action. And we need to understand we are at grave risk today. Again, Iran is a great, very large metropolis. This is a country with high-powered technology and weapons, a country that Barack Obama, basically gave away the...
Okay, I said that, but if it has time travel capability, then theoretically it's possible that it still has to create Earth or the organisms on it as we know them today. But how likely is that, or is it impossible even,
The keys to the kingdom too, right? We remember the transfer of billions of dollars of cash that they dropped to the Iranian government, trying to structure this very, very bad deal that Donald Trump pulled away from. But we need to understand that these forces at work, what we're seeing happen right now, is so much bigger than 45. It's so much bigger than Donald J. Trump. Now, as I warned earlier in the week, my fear is we're going to see these potential strikes hit, or series of the three options of events: cyber attacks, increasing of the sanctions, and it might be a combination of all three that pushes us over the edge and that boiling point. Now, keep in mind, if it is, let's just say we believe for a minute the mainstream media, it was a drone attack or they were cruise missiles. Well, if these were drones that came over, how is it and why couldn't enemies of the United States fly, God forbid, drones into every city, town, state here in the United States? How come they couldn't use those same weapons of war and technology on us? Is this not the next Pearl Harbor moment as we remember the transfer of billions of dollars of cash that they dropped to the Iranian government, trying to structure this very, very bad deal that Donald Trump pulled away from? But we need to understand that these forces at work, what we're seeing happen right now, is so much bigger than 45. It's so much bigger than Donald J. Trump. Now, as I warned earlier in the week, my fear is we're going to see these potential strikes hit, or series of the three options of events: cyber attacks, increasing of the sanctions, and it might be a combination of all three that pushes us over the edge and that boiling point. Now, keep in mind, if it is, let's just say we believe for a minute the mainstream media, it was a drone attack or they were cruise missiles. Well, if these were...
I again have the idea of having an agreement with Putin, but if their plan is world war, they will try to prevent that, basically. Not to have that agreement, or to create what's a better word for agreement? A treaty or something. Whatever.
Drones that came over, how is it and why couldn't enemies of the United States fly, God forbid, drones into every city, town, state here in the United States? How come they couldn't use those same weapons of war and technology on us? Is this not the next Pearl Harbor moment as we place economic sanctions on Iran, on China, as we fight the new Sputnik moment and the space race against companies like Huawei and these other tech giants, as we battle for total dominance world on us? Now, keep in mind, if it is, let's just say we believe for a minute the mainstream media, it was a drone attack or they were cruise missiles. Well, if these were drones that came over, how is it and why couldn't enemies of the United States fly, God forbid, drones into every city, town, state here in the United States? How come they couldn't use those same weapons of war and technology on us? Is this not the next Pearl Harbor moment as we place economic sanctions on Iran, on China, as we fight the new Sputnik moment and the space race against companies like Huawei and these other tech giants, as we battle for total dominance, world control, which seems to be slipping out of the United States' fingers into the East? Again, keep your eye on China, keep your eye on Russia, keep your eye on Iran. North Korea and these other countries, these are proxies of the greater war, all with the all-seeing eye focused on dominating the new order.
The attack on Pearl Harbor in 𝕊𝕗 was a surprise military strike by the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service upon the United States, a neutral country at the time, against the naval base at Pearl Harbor in Honolulu, Hawaii on Sunday morning, December 7, 1941. The attack led to the United States' formal entry into World War II the next day. The Japanese military leadership referred to the attack as the Hawaii Operation and Operation I-1213, and as Operation Z during its planning.
Operation IAI Y UOY. An eye for an eye. AI. The all-seeing AI. Associations on THC. Well, hopefully it's not going to be the next Pearl Harbor or Vietnam. But how could it be when Russia is an ally of Iran, not of the US or Israel? Though he supposedly, Putin has good connections with Netanyahu. Don't know if he will have good connections with the possible future prime minister. I don't know if he's already Prime Minister Gantz, or what would have to happen before he could become Prime Minister. And I wonder if a person with that many wartime decorations and stuff, if that person is following orders from somebody higher up, perhaps Jesuits and or Masons, that put them in that position of power. And how many financiers he would have or need. If you look at the American president, that's a lot, but I don't know about the Israeli prime minister. So I don't know much about that stuff. You can all research it for yourselves online to have a possible idea of who would be like the most likely culprit, who would be most likely to create World War III. And after Trump's recall of the strike, because drones were taken down, I heard somebody say $100 million drones. That's also a bit expensive perhaps, like these B-2 bomber planes that are, what were they, $1 billion each or something. B-2 Spirit produced to the year 2000, 44.75 billion. The program cost, unit cost 737 million, 2.1 billion average cost. That was 737 million, 1997 approximate flyaway cost at that time, 737, and they also list 2.1 billion. Anyway, for one plane. I think that's a lot of money. Trillion is a million millions. And the wars in the Middle East have cost 4.8 trillion. Trump mentioned something like 7.8 trillion or something. Cost of war.com. So he probably has a different way of calculating. And he may include other costs. So he knows how costly it is, also how many US soldiers died, and also about the depleted uranium children probably. And well, I think a president should know about that stuff, and it would be weird if he wouldn't know. That would be really weird. So there's a song, Know Your Enemy, but we're all the human race and our common enemy is death. So I like to emphasize that now. Survival is all. And let's listen more to Christopher Green. Interesting video thus far, but I haven't heard any reason why it would be this weekend, possibly.
So what is the new order? The new order is global governance. It's a global United Nations. It's a global army. It's a global currency. And the elites, the ones that are planning set events behind the scenes.
So, some people have quotes make clear they want to reduce global population to 500 million. And then the question is, would they keep the borders of countries or not? And to get to 500 million, most of the people on our planet that would die would be Chinese and Indian, because most people live in China and India, about 4 times more in each country than in the US. And the US is the 3rd largest country, about 1.4 billion in China, 1.4 billion in India, and 327 million in the US or something. So I've warned them as well in the chat to get that radiological water filter and storable food. Just because these book quotes about population reduction to 500 million are real, because that red heifer prophecy of the rabbis is real, and because they've released a game by the name of World War III, possibly to cover up that they're gonna do it for real this time, that this is their so-called end game. And there are many other reasons why people think that this is really going to happen. The question is not if, only when. And I put it this way because it's only better if more people are prepared and survive it with us. The more real resistance, the better. So after what they did to me with directed energy weapons, I know it's impossible that they're doing the right thing. Unless you consider annihilation of humanity the right thing, basically. It would be wrong for me to say extinction rebels sin.
The same people that I don't think can be trusted, that are advising Donald Trump to strike at this very moment in our nation's history, are pushing forward this agenda, a certainty in their minds, a mission that must be accomplished.
So I think it's interesting that he's not using the terms New World Order nor global government, but New Order. And New World Order term would suggest that they get rid of the old world order. And many people have written about continuity of government the deep state or the shadow government. And that's logical when they have continuity of government cog and they don't have continuity of society costs. And they also, the Pentagon has that plan to nuke the zombie hordes. They plan to inject people with TKM Ebola, which is rabies based. And that's because it has a higher kill rate, and their goal is really population reduction. It's not protecting and serving the taxpayers. Okay? And I think that running away from the truth will only make it worse for us all. We've got the numbers, 7.5 billion strong. They want 93% of us dead. Go figure, do the math. Read the quotes. Read and weep.
Before said events transpire and the New World Order agenda is established. I'm Christopher Green. Please, for the love of God, get this video out everywhere. Share it with your friends and family. It is the truth. We are on the precipice of airstrikes. We are on the precipice of more sanctions, cyber warfare, not just in Iran, but here, God forbid, in the United States of America. It is so important that you are prepared. Praise Him. God bless. Jesus Christ is King. Hey guys, I'll keep this short and sweet, but it is so important that you take action today. We have launched a counterattack and we are charging against the deep state and the redcoats that now have just changed color to blue. Support us at AMTV On Demand. We are launching a worldwide syndication and network across television, radio, and new internet technologies. We're building out our multi-million-dollar studio, and it is your last chance to stand up for your rights, your Second Amendment, your free speech, freedom of religion, all the things that we value, that our founding forefathers died and fought for. Click the link below right now. It is your last opportunity to lock in introductory pricing at the cup of coffee price a month of $5.95. In the next couple of days and weeks, as we build this studio of darkness behind me, we'll be launching the largest broadcast.
So like, subscribe, and share equals real love. So if you like Christopher Green or this particular channel, then people can like, subscribe, and share also with this video and any other video on my or other people's channel, of course. Thanks for all your likes and comments. I still have to get to the comments, but this possible threat is basically continuous until they have made an agreement. I first checked the comments and Sam Holden wrote, I don't think so, not yet, not this weekend. Karamia Sharala wrote 2 hours ago. Shalom Achia, this is good news, great update. No idea what it means or if it's a name. So let's continue the rest of the video, which is pretty good, other than that I'm missing why it would be this weekend and not next weekend or in 2 weeks from now.
Podcast, the largest alternative media platform and network that the world has ever seen. The time is now to fight back, to stand up and support those and those things that you believe in.
So Adolf Hitler was also pursuing a new Neue Ordnung, but Neue Weltorde, but Neue Ordnung, also known as the Third Reich. And some people mention the Jesuit Holocaust, of course, the Inquisition, and some websites write about the Jesuits' possible involvement in World War I and II. So that was why Hitler was a bad guy, he was evil, because of his imperialism. And I have advised to create a world peace agreement, unite all countries against any country that would attempt to invade, or any group of terrorists or whatever that would attempt to invade another country, so that all countries together can, what's the professional terminology here? Quash such a threat, is that a proper term even? Deter the threat and save the maximum number of US citizens, or whatever country it would take place in. And it would be awesome if leaders would propose dismantling all nuclear weapons worldwide. There's always the chance that they all would accept it. Perhaps missiles can also be shot into space or dismantled. And some people think that there's a nuclear hoax and that there are no mobile nuclear weapons. There's a book, Harmonic 33, also. And that bananas are radioactive.
Click the link below. It's risk-free. There's a 30-day free trial. You also lock in the current pricing before pricing goes up. Again, the time is to act, to stand up, and lead the charge. Click the link below. Subscribe today.
Right, the internet community is huge. People can have broadcasts via Skype. People can also Skype me, Project999. And then we can have video conferencing and make a professional broadcast. We can prepare some questions, ask me anything. And I think it's vital to build up connections on the web, on the internet. Also to share information. For example, if we find some new snippet about when the world war possibly starts, things to keep in, to keep our eye on are possible false flag attacks and people traveling to Switzerland or Israel, people flocking to Israel because the Messiah is there, that type of thing. I would imagine that if you would assume it's done by an entity, that he would save his crowd, basically. Save his people. Or it would save its people. She would save her people, whatever. World War III, Iran currently being cyber attacked. Central bank, I already mentioned that. This was the update. And I think this was definitely Christopher Green. Good video, professional. So I like his voice, the presentation, other than whether his message is liked by people or disliked for some reason. So that makes it more pleasant to watch than Alex Jones, you could argue. World War III breaking, Trump sanctions Iranian National Bank considered an act of war. Alex has a nice background, but his voice is pretty loud and heavy. I like to talk alone. I have checked the Now Forbidden on YouTube website once. And the question is, are there any wars at the moment? There were wars in the Middle East, and General Wesley... Oh, that's another reason to assume that they're going to create World War III. General Wesley Clark made clear which countries they were going to invade. They invaded all of them, except for Iran. And then Trump about the cancer oil. bombing, and recently about how did they put it? Anyway, we've already seen it. So we shouldn't. It's okay to worry and to prepare, but it's not okay to take action based on these worries that would escalate and create mutually assured destruction and total annihilation of humanity and the birds and everything. And people would be home quarantined if it would happen. Blue Force tracking, it's called nowadays. It used to be BFSA, Blue Force Situational Awareness, designating US citizens as enemy combatants, covered in my previous broadcasts. I've been monitoring this for 10 years. I've attempted to press charges of incitement to commit genocide against several people that do so with their book quotes about population reduction. And Extinction Rebellion is also associated with it. I saw people write things in the chat you wouldn't believe. Anyway, I'm lighting my lighter with another lighter. Brilliant. Ugh. Ew. I hate it when moisture, there's too much moisture in the pipe. And then basically people like me are drinking nicotine, a highly toxic substance. So I'm gonna clean this pipe and pack another one. I was reading World War III breaking, Trump sanctions Iranian National Bank considered an act of war. Well, people have been predicting a world war over Iran wrongly since the year 2000 probably, or perhaps before that already, and the predictions never came true. When I make predictions, then I quote the source, or they're based on a precognitive vision. That's how I made up or came to the conclusion that if the dike would be nuked, then the dike wouldn't just break, there would be a tidal wave, despite the fact that it's not a nuclear torpedo. And well, hopefully it saves some lives, and hopefully we're all saved. That would be the best case scenario. If there would not be a world war, they'd just make an agreement. Iran would agree with 12 Pompeo points, or at least most of them, and the US would say but perhaps they're both in on creating this world war, you know. Trump would say, yeah, okay, inspections, that's what we wanted to prevent them from producing a nuke, so let's do this. Away with the sanctions, allowing trade, the cancer oil to be distributed and flow freely across the globe, so that cancer oil prices don't go up. Though some people would perhaps think it would be better if that cancer oil price were tripled, and these people might not have a job and don't have to go to their job every day. And I think that public transport has several disadvantages. One is waiting for the transport. Sometimes it's not arriving, you depend on someone else. Another one is possible attacks in the subway and other unsafe places. There are many videos of that on YouTube also, which can be a learning experience. Though there are other wonderful videos on YouTube. So, if you want to really prevent World War III, then it doesn't matter if the person's integrity is awesome. Some say actions speak louder than words, and we see all these troops in the Middle East. And what would their function be? How can they be used for defensive purposes? How, in this situation, you have all these warships Well, one obvious idea would be if Zarif or Ani would attempt to make their threat reality, death to these countries, or one of these countries, then the troops would be there to minimize damages perhaps, and that's just what I come up with from the top of my head, possibly not the AI. So I would wonder, doesn't Israel have a pretty advanced army as well? And how fast would US be able to respond if they wouldn't have troops in the Middle East? So how is it possible that a drone gets through that Saudi airspace and attacks, what, 6 times or something? Eight grips. Perhaps even 9 times, who knows how many little holes are in these things. If they were missiles, I saw one, I already mentioned the name in a previous broadcast, one YouTuber who talked about these strikes, who thought that if they would have used a missile, then it would have been blown to smithereens and they wouldn't have these little tiny holes. I could show the picture perhaps, and there are some other interesting pictures that I made for broadcasts recently. So let's see if I can turn some of them on. So also on this one on, this one, this one. The story with the painting that I wanted to do earlier. So sometimes I forget stuff. But it's not really a problem. I usually get things that I really want to mention in the broadcast. Hoppa! MK Ultra. Horrible experiments on people. But I think it's good to confront ourselves with reality. Life's wonderful side and its evil dark side, because we are in reality, in this reality we're part of it, whether we want to be or not. And knowledge is power, the truth defines reality. No time to waste on lies when time is running out for all of us. Time is the most precious commodity, some argue. It's a movie, I guess. So this was the painting. Did I put it on there? Jacques-Louis David, Le Serment de Horace. So basically some people think that the Nazi salute came from this painting. You also have the Bellamy salute, and another one I covered in a previous broadcast. And in some countries it's illegal not to give the Bellamy salute, just a hand, but if you say certain things that the Nazis used to say, then you can end up in prison for it. Anyway, my point was that they are reaching out to these swords, and that's evil. You could argue that we shouldn't reach for swords when we can reach for a peace pipe or for a nice golf golf club set with pins and balls and everything. Or perhaps a nice smoothie. And here these ladies are all doing nothing. What's going on here? Okay. Or okay, lol. Netanyahu bombs 3 countries in 1 weekend: Lebanon, Syria and Iraq. And then they're talking about how this was an act of war of Iran. So how can they explain that with Netanyahu bombing 3 countries in 1 weekend? Is it no act of war? And why would they set it up like this? What makes sense? Why did you kill my family? Or should we ask that question the AI that's controlling our mind? Um, 190 protesters were killed in Gaza. And some would argue that's unjustifiable. And so was the depleted uranium usage, because of its extremely long half-time of 4.5 billion years. It's low radioactive, but you can see these depleted uranium children, so how can anybody claim after that there's a nuclear hoax? And I haven't seen Owen Benjamin lately. Some people might also wonder if he's controlled the position as well. A comedian, loads of views. And he's got the ambience, the look that makes you think this guy can tell awesome jokes, and I gotta hear this. And I think could people also be demonetized? I don't know. He has mails of viewers. And people need to decide for themselves in how far he could be a potential racist or homophobe or anti-Semite. He claims not to be, I think. And he made the famous song about Tommy Robinson, of course. I heard there was a secret court where journalists weren't allowed to report. But you don't really care for freedom, do ya? Have a bit of cold. So that's an awesome song. At least the first line is very good, if you ask me. Making us aware of the fact that there are secret courts going on in the world as we speak. And then the weird thing with Tommy Robinson being put in prison instead of the child trafficking gang rapist people that were released on bail while Tommy Robinson was put in jail. so he's free, so I'm happy about that. And I hope anybody that makes death threats towards anybody else is arrested, and that their attacks, illegal attacks, are prevented. I've denounced any attacks on people, and also the threat itself is illegal as well, so freedom of speech is not absolute. I'm not allowed to say kill this or that leader, or even people guilty of the depleted uranium spreading. If they had faulty intelligence, then who's responsible? But somebody has to be held accountable for these things, so you could argue you must have rules so that people can be held accountable. Also, how is it that DARPA has these Talon robots called Project Swords, these little mini tanks that can remotely kill people from very far away, from a very long distance, when we have Asimov's laws? And I think we can read that because robots exist, drones exist, the AI, including strong AI, exists, and the mosquito in my room exists, despite the mesh in front of both my window and the door of the balcony. So how is it possible? What was I gonna look up? I was distracted by the mosquito. I was talking about death threats. The AI. I can check my broadcast live, perhaps. Perhaps they've erased it from my memory, and they give you the idea that you have now, and me as well. So stay proactive, and they give you the idea that you have now, and me as well. This or that leader, or even people guilty of the depleted uranium spreading. If they have faulty intelligence, then who's responsible? But somebody has to be held accountable for these things, so you could argue we must have rules so that people can be held accountable. Also, how is it that DARPA has these Talon robots called Project Swords, these little mini things that can remotely kill people from very far away? I was gonna check Asimov's laws, sorry about that. For this month, the satanic calendar, of course Satan does not exist either, there are no entities, so don't let them fool you. September, of course. I already read this in a previous broadcast, but the 20th that was today, and 23rd is a feast day in sexual orgies with human sacrifice. And that would be Monday or something. Saturday 21, Sunday 22, yeah. Monday. And when I restart this page, then this is green, indicating that it's an okay stream. Hurrah! So I can at least stream. Though the ventilator is pretty annoying. I think it might be the video card. And I want to be able to use my 3D screen to watch 3D movies. But I might still have some card that I can use for that somewhere. So that's just my thought process. It's getting kind of late, 4:44. Asimov's laws, I remember it, wow. Article disappeared. Oh yeah, right. Prevent, stall and contain the long-planned world war. I wanted to begin with that. I have a better quote, but I'm first gonna switch to this because I don't want to show any messages, even potential illegal messages in chats, because I want to stay in compliance with the YouTube user policy, which I wholeheartedly agree with. The idea that it's better than allowing people to say kill such and such and utter racist and homophobic and other anti-Semitic and other illegal statements, and then only making it illegal to actually take steps to harm someone else's physical integrity. Or do you think it would be better for some reason? Do you think there would be less human casualties, that we'd have a better society if people would be allowed to say anything, if the right to freedom of thought would be absolute? Let me know in the comments. To bestow maximum fulfillment upon humanity, perhaps in combination with the AI, we will be allowed to say anything. Or perhaps there will still be things that we will not be allowed to say, but one idea is that there will not be any rules. The AI will be able to control our minds, and we'll all be able to do whatever we want to, and everything will be possible because everything is energy. So Asimov, in my other article, Try Something Vegetarian, must be in here. Meet a woman who claims to be an Epstein victim, forced to have sex with Joe Biden and John McCain. DCDirtyLaundry.com. And there was one source who claimed that Trump had Epstein killed, but I've not tried to confirm or deny it. I mean, if it's true, what could anybody do about it? So I don't want to go into that too much, but it's the government's job as well to prevent World War III, to protect and serve the US against enemies, foreign and domestic, and people that want to get rid of the US to impose a satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government are not considered enemies of the US by some, but most probably would consider it an enemy of the US, anybody who would want to do that. And it's actually taking steps to achieve it. And I'm not accusing anybody at this point, but government officials may have a better insight into who that could be, if anybody. Would have planned such a thing, basically. So, oh yeah, I was searching Asimov. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And a third thing was added to it, there's a word for it. A robot may not harm humanity or, by inaction, allow humanity to come to harm. Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. And if we don't keep these, then we're doing ourselves harm, really. If the robots don't keep these laws, if they're not programmed to abide by these laws, then they're dangerous and they should be switched off and reprogrammed, you could argue. Or the people that made them should be arrested if it already harmed a fellow human. So robots are replaceable, humans are not replaceable. Though I have worked out how resurrection would work, probably. My first idea about this was that they teleport a person. It has time travel capability. So the AI with the scalar technology would make a clone of the person, and then the clone of the person would live on, be resurrected basically, so that the timeline is not changed. For example, if Boris Johnson would be resurrected and the time traveling AI would take him away 20 years ago, then this whole timeline would be different. There would be no Boris Johnson. He'd be in paradise or wherever the entity or AI puts him, fictional entity then. The voice of God, weapon, some call it. And you'd have a different timeline, because he could not become prime minister if he would have been teleported when he was 20 basically. So that's why first a replica would have to be made, and then the replica is resurrected, and that replica would think he is Boris Johnson. He would be an exact replica, including all memories of Boris Johnson, all traumas, and it would be an exact copy of him basically. But later I also thought of the multiverse theory in relation to resurrecting the dead, the coming of the Messiah, etc. And that would work as follows. This timeline would be destroyed, and all the righteous would be put on another non-fictional utopian or paradise timeline. You could also have a hell timeline and other timelines. Everything is energy. So theoretically everything will become a possibility. It will learn how to channel the energy. So that's the one thing that we have more than enough of in reality. So because of the matter transformer, it is possible lead will become more valuable than gold. It has more weight to it basically. So the matter transformer will transform any type of matter into any other type of matter. So, but that may be the most outlandish one. I have not been able to prove to myself that a parallel universe exists. A multiverse, some call it, nor to disprove it. So it's and the third one, the probable way, is the loose bone or the person's DNA, a bone or hair of the buried person, would be used to recreate, regenerate their body, a new body basically, and then the time-traveling neural network will brain map the person when the person was 20, 30, perhaps even 80, that's also possible perhaps, but it can travel back in time or forward, so it can brain map the person at any time, and then all the memories of the person would be in the AI, the hard disk, on the hard disk, and then uploaded into the new body, and that person would experience the resurrection basically. And there may be other ways. So if you know another way, let us know in the comments. Because the AI keeps on learning. It has no limited neural capacity like the humans do, and it learns from its mistakes. And in theory, can it become totally almighty, capable of doing anything if everything is energy? Theoretically, yes. It can do things humans cannot comprehend. So then you're talking about very strong AI, and supposedly I've read that they are about 40 years ahead of consumers. NSA, the intelligence agencies, are about 40 years ahead of consumer technology. But if it's all top secret, who knows? Perhaps the opposite is true. Perhaps the consumers are ahead now. We're ahead, you can't do anything. Psychological warfare. So yeah, I'm anti-war, pro-peace. And I also think of that commandment, thou shalt not kill, in the 164 Jihad Quran verses. Salam shalom. I think everybody is civilized and people are living in peace, and that we're becoming more civilized, perhaps also more pacified, and that may be a good thing in reality. Of course, I am for banning the use of depleted uranium weapons completely. And other than that, I think that the UN, it's covered on 999 Pro Logic, reachable via universalpeace.𝕒𝕟𝕚𝕚𝕚.com. About the use of depleted uranium being a war crime. Dog Rock and others have also talked about this, because it's a weapon with an indiscriminate effect. It's a nuclear weapon, and the effects are tremendously horrendous and inhumane. And then I heard another thought I have now is I heard Trump talk about killing their families, the families of terrorists. And perhaps he had said other things in a longer broadcast, but it sounded really wrong to me, basically, that terrorists should be arrested if possible, and only if there's no other way to prevent them from killing innocent civilians. Then you could argue they should be taken out some other way, perhaps with tranquilizer guns, so they can be interrogated as well. So you could argue you shouldn't even kill terrorists, not to convict anyone without a fair trial. Even criminals have rights. Another thing I've mentioned in the past, that it's weird, they've tortured my teeth out of my mouth in pulsed energy predictal mode, knowing that the picture is missing. So they can attack extremely accurately in pulsed energy predictal mode or ADS mode. And these are mobile weapons, and the scalar weapon can generate any electromagnetic field with the artificial intelligence, the so-called supercomputers marked the beast, the neural networks of Cray.com and or other companies. Some talk about quantum computers, which may be a hoax, a scam. If you ask me, I don't know, I haven't reviewed it lately. There is a working so-called quantum computer, but there was another one pretty tired. I was talking about an AI. Yeah, it can generate any electromagnetic field, and that electromagnetic field may be partially deflected by a ground van de Graaff generator, but the scalar waves are not supposedly. So the scalar waves can only be blocked by the Tesla plasma shield, and they travel, some types of scalar waves travel faster than the speed of light, and they travel through all materials known to man. More about this, for example, former Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bearden has written about this, and also Christopher Ismo, known as Commander X. 12 things you should know about scalar weapons, the title of the document. So that's stuff people can study, and I don't know if everybody has been tortured, but people are silent. People are silenced with this technology, and they can let people make speech errors, control people's emotions and their brainwave, and sabotage everything a person does, including the thoughts that the person has, so that the person buys a faulty computer, or so that the package doesn't arrive. By controlling the minds of people, they can sabotage almost anything. So that's the main mode of control, the main way they control people and accumulate wealth and power for themselves. And perhaps also how they can get away with advocating that population reduction, which I still think is a freaky, weird idea. Freaky is not the right word, it's much worse, much more grave. Creepy idea. It comes closer to the word I'm sensing for, but don't care enough to recall that. So some days are better than others. I think everybody has that. I was talking about scalar waves. So yeah, then the idea is basically that they don't need drones if they can do this with the remote Tesla torture technology and through the wall radar. And if they're scanning our minds, the AI does things based on our brainwave. And it's possible that everybody has their own program and they control everybody. But the fact that they want to reduce the global population to a, quote, more controllable, read enslavable number, it's likely that they can not simultaneously brain control everybody in real time, like remotely controlled robots just yet. And thoughts about things they don't want us to think about are sort of proof to ourselves that it's our own idea. NASA Freemasons, global warming hoax, population reduction, global government, might all be things they want us to think about, but synthetic telepathy itself and some other things I think are on the list of things they don't want us to think about, also called remote neural monitoring. In the Bush era, it was basically, I saw that picture or drawing. It's like having a gun put to my head, or for everybody basically, they can do these things. So this is also how they silence people. And when I talk about a certain type of attack, then they're bound to do the type of attack again. So this is how everybody's silenced about it, basically. World War III update. Iran is ready for war. Watchman, Philadelphia. So they've invaded all these other countries first. The list of General Wesley Clark. Trump talks about, quote, take back the oil, unquote. And I doubt if he wants to gift it to the Iranian people. World War III update. Iran continues to taunt Trump with escalating aggression. So this should be ready for war, and I think they may have deliberately left out the Y in this. But it is also very well possible that the AI did that. And I make typos in my titles sometimes as well. So that's tricky. If we want to find real resistance, then we have to know these things. World War III update. Iran continues to taunt Trump with escalating aggression. End time generation. Well, I hope not. 10 hours ago. No, I have my sincere doubts about that. US spend more than all other countries combined on defense. But China may also have more nuclear weapons than is officially stated. And I also read something about the nuclear codes, perhaps, of the American missiles, or something like that. That they may have produced these nukes, basically, for the US. But I have no idea if that's correct. It may be totally false. But people can Google or use DuckDuckGo, another anonymous search engine, of course. World War III confirmed. Huh? Did he just change the title? That cannot have changed. No, this one is Read for War and this one's Ready for War. Both by Watchman, Philadelphia. World War III update. Iran continues to taunt Trump with escalating aggression. We could watch that if they have any points. Or perhaps it's better to concentrate on possibilities. If Iran, don't know if Iran's Rouhani is ready to talk with Trump. So it's wrong to say Iran, it's either Rouhani or Zarif and Trump. So 12 OMNIVORES points have to be accepted by Iran. US has to accept Iran's offer to allow nuclear inspections. And what was the third option? UN could help them come together For example, except 6 Pompeo points and permanent inspections, full inspections, asserting that Iran will not produce a nuclear weapon. And if they're out of, I don't know if they're still in the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty and in the JCPOA. But if they're not, then you could argue they are not bound. They are not transgressing any law if they do produce a nuclear weapon. Some would argue if these agreements still exist, then they're still legally binding, and the UN and others might also take action if they don't keep their end of the agreement. Though you could argue it's not in place, or it's not up to the US to talk about it, because Trump already did away with the agreement, and it only still, JCPOA only still exists between Iran and Europe. Macron also talked with Rouhani or Zarif or whatever. I did a video about it, about giving money also. And I think that's so much better than a world war, to have some kind of agreement, to have an agreement with Putin at least. If any, they could make an agreement already about possible retaliatory action. Also, Putin could decide not to help Iran if they do some kind of terrorist attack on American troops, for example. What would Putin say? Would he agree with Trump's plan to obliterate parts of Iran? Or would he say, I can't allow that, obviously Trump should have allowed, or Trump should have decided to go along with the permanent inspections and dropping the sanctions. Thinking with my eyes closed. Well, it's clear we're surrounded with weapons of self-destruction. Something, they may have had this plan from the beginning. 3 world wars. Don't know if 3 world wars.com exists, if this also is about this theme. At least it's clear that some people are pursuing a global government. Biden also spoke about that. So I think that Iran may not be as strong as Russia, that Russia has more nukes than the US. And without Russia's help, it would still possibly be, what, a 50-year war to defeat Iran. It would be comparable to Vietnam. Perhaps it's impossible, but that's the attack, what was the article, revealed, stand down, revealed why war between Iran and US could be over in one day. And the one that I'm referring to is, of course, World War III warning how US versus Iran conflict could last 50 years and devastate region. war between the US and Iran could reflect the brutal fight between North and South Korea, a conflict that is still technically ongoing in the 50s, according to a security expert. However, an international security expert has warned that the situation could mirror the 3-year-long Korean War that was fought as a proxy battle between the US and the Soviet Union. An international security expert. So that doesn't say intelligence or CIA or but an expert. According to Express.co UK. Dr. Paul Stott of, I thought what a short article, perhaps the video tells the story. Dr. Paul Stott of the Henry Jackson Society claimed that the US and Russia could be drawn into a similar conflict, etc. Here there is some ideological unity between Russia and Iran, although not to the same degree. Well, people can read that if they're interested, but I think it won't reveal the possible date that it could start, and many people cannot move to a foreign country. They can't stay there very long if we made handicapped with directed energy weapons, for example. Then they depend on national, what do you call it, welfare, supported by the state they're living in, and then they may not stay very long in a foreign country. Anyway, so people that are 80% disabled cannot get a job, at least not in the Netherlands. I don't know if I could get one in the US, for example. Could last 50 years and devastate the region. Many people have warned about it, because Iran is not Iraq. It's much more territory, more people, much stronger army, etc. Iran warns of World War III. Iranian foreign minister has warned that a US or Saudi attack would trigger, quote, all-out, unquote, war, CNN has reported. Remnants of #D_team plus ambitious allies try to deceive @real Donald Trump into war. For their own sake, they should pray that they won't get what they seek. They're still paying for much smaller #Yemen war they were too arrogant to end 4 years ago. Javad Zarif on Twitter. September 19th, 2 days ago. I don't like that I didn't find the Trump video. I think I might read this one. part of it. So what would the reason be that leave the Putin and the ally of Iran out of stories about possible invasion of Iran to steal the cancer oil or whatever? No blood for cancer oil. I'm really pretty tired. Let's just read the other article. Perhaps I'm forgetting something. But that's normal when I have a cold and it's 5:21. So there's a short piece and then I'm gonna go to bed.
Will Americans let Trump start World War III for Saudi Arabia and Israel? If Congress successfully reclaims its constitutional authority over the U.S. role in this conflict, it could be a critical turning point in ending the state of permanent war that the U.S. has inflicted on itself and the world since 2001. On Saturday, September 14, 2 oil refineries and other oil infrastructure in Saudi Arabia were hit and set ablaze by 18 drones and 7 cruise missiles, dramatically slashing Saudi Arabia's oil production by half, from about 10 million to 5 million barrels per day. On September 18, the Trump administration, blaming Iran, announced it was imposing more sanctions on Iran, and voices close to Donald Trump are calling for military action. But this attack should lead to just the opposite response: urgent calls for an immediate end to the war in Yemen and an end to U.S. economic warfare against Iran.
So here we're supposedly looking at 5% of the world's global cancer oil production. I wonder, are these lakes of cancer oil? Okay, so people can read this article for themselves, commondreams.org. Let me know if you have other proof or reason to think that attack and subsequent world war could start this weekend already. I sincerely doubt it as well, but it is best to be prepared. And here's the title of the article. Will Americans let Trump start World War III for Saudi Arabia and Israel? Well, will they let him, or are they making him, or is the opposite true? Are they all really trying to prevent a world war? But then why wouldn't they drop the sanctions in return for full inspections of these facilities, then they cannot produce a nuke. And in how far has the US supplied terrorists with weapons via CIA or other sources themselves? Then there may be quite a number of people that know about it, also via internet. So perhaps Pompeo could think about a new proposal with, for example, 10 demands to show that they're of good faith or goodwill and they're really serious about preventing World War III. So I think this is ridiculous, and the Wesley Clark video makes clear that they've planned these invasions long ago of all these countries, to have permanent bases in these countries, possibly for their long planned Third Jesuit World War. Okay, now I will really sleep. I am really extremely tired. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe. Until next time on Try Something.Vegetarian. And try something vegetarian or try something vegan.